So hey everyone, and welcome to Chapter 0, the prologue of Silverlink, a new little novel stories I've been working on for a little bit lately. And I decided to make this an audio thing out of this, because I thought it could be a fun and interesting thing, a little bit different compared to other works I've been doing here, and in general thought it could be fun for people to listen to. So yes, this is the very first time I do something like this, so hopefully it doesn't turn too bad. We're gonna see how this is gonna go though, so here we go with the first chapter of Silverlink. The kingdom of Avalonia were born over 1,000 years ago. Before then, it was just a collective of tribes and villages with different leaders and different traditions, often at war with each other due to differences and for resources. However, when the large armies of Urgon threatened to destroy the land, did the tribes join together under one banner to defend their lands against the oncoming hordes. From there was the foundation of Avalonia born, named after the first queen that united them. The first queen united the tribes with power and war machines she created, those so-called mind-link armors. Massive armors that was controlled by the mind, stronger and faster than any mechanical device in the world. Under her rule and her creations did Avalonia survive and become strong enough to defend against Urgon. A technical and political genius did the queen keep inventing machines that would benefit the kingdom until the day she died of old age. And her descendants would continue leading the country and build even more machines more advanced than the previous one. The bloodline would pass on through generations and get stronger for each child born with it. From it came the ability to build, control and break down machines by will. They call it the Silverlink. Blood that will only exist within the royal family. Only one child will be given the pure Silverlink, while the others would only get weaker versions of this link. Thus, the one that gained the power through Silverlink would become the king or queen. Through this power did Avalonia grow strong and bountiful, becoming peaceful with their neighbors. However, 200 years ago did an opposition grow slowly, a cult wishing for the machines to rule. They knew Avalonia had the power to rule a vast empire, maybe even the world with their massive army of machines. Yet the royal family only worked for peace, not expanding the small country any further. They formed alliance and relationship with other kingdoms, holding peace in the world. But not everyone wanted that. The cult that became known as Nox Machina sought to overthrow the royal family in a series of assassinations. However, the rebellion was stopped and the cult mostly died out. It took 200 years until today before the cult made another attempt, and this time they had help within the royal family. The king and queen were loved by its people, and they had 2 children. Their first child was Prince Argin, and the second was Princess Kana. The prince was a serious and hard-working child that only wanted to build better machines and make the kingdom prosper even more. His hunger to learn was greater than anyone's, and he wished for his country to be the greatest. However, he was not born with Silverlink. His sister was. Kana, a genius that could dismantle and build any machine since she was a small child, had abilities he could only dream of. But she was a shy and timid child that came to fear machines and avoided them, not learning to use her ability as the previous Silverlinks have done. That was something Argin hated. His sister would be queen, having the Silverlink and abilities he never would have. It was like the world did all it could to work against him, to punish him for just being born with this desire and these ambitions. In his despair did he fall for the temptation and whisper from Nox Machina. He became the key that let them in, and the royal family would be no more, and he would be king. The attack was well planned. By his very own hands did the king and queen die, yet in this meticulous planning did the princess manage to flee. Wounded on her forehead was she saved by few people that still supported the old royal family. However, the prince, soon to be king, wouldn't let the princess get away. With a heavy breathing did a man tumble through the dark and dusty tunnels, leaning against old cold walls. In front of him was a woman holding a torch, her face in an expression of fear and pain. "Galen, are you okay?" she asked, worried, and the other stopped. The man coughed and spit out some blood to the stairs. "Never been better," he said, and the wrinkled face turned into a smile. The bushy grey mustache was bloody as the lung has been punctured from a sword. "Though I think I'm gonna stay here and rest a bit. You all continue on." "No, you—" A young man holding a child stepped forward, but the old man raised a hand. "Yes, I will, Nash. You, Mel, and Krakow must escape and protect the princess no matter what. I have served the royal family for 50 years. I'm old, and I don't have long time left." Galen stood up, barely able to breathe due to pain. Yet the old man raised his bloody sword. "I'm just a mere servant, but the king and queen always treated me well, and now they are gone. The only thing left for me is to make sure the princess doesn't fall into Argin's hands. Let nothing befall her. I will buy as much time as this old body can." Nash was about to say something when the tall and mute Krakow put a hand on his shoulder and shook his head. He nodded towards the tunnel, urging them to continue. They could hear the sounds of soldiers getting closer. Nash turned to the old man, showing a sad smile. "Thank you for everything, Grandpa." "Just go, you whippersnappers. I might be old and bleeding, but there's still some life in my steps." The old man smiled at them over the shoulder. It gave them the strength to move on, and the group ran. It became dark and quiet with him alone with his painful breathing. The sounds of heavy steps came closer, and so the light of their lamps. Galen hardened his grip around their sword and waited for them to come. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you, Victor, Tanya, but I promise that your daughter will live on in your stead." "It's Galen! Kill the old fool!" the soldiers shouted as they drew their blades and guns. With his last might did Galen jump towards them as he roared, "I'm on my way to hell! Join me, you dogs!" Quickly did they descend the stairs, staggering at times as they mustered all their strength just to be able to escape. Nash held the unconscious princess in his arms. Her little body was covered in her parents' blood, as well from a wound on her forehead. Had he only been a little bit faster, maybe he could have saved the king and queen. Maybe he could have made sure the princess didn't get hurt. "Nash, watch it!" Melly took his arm as he was about to fall from a missing step in the stairs. "You need to be careful. You're carrying the princess." Sorry, he muttered quietly. She shook her head a bit. "Just focus on getting her out of here. That is our duty." Never had he felt so powerful as when Argon, the prince himself, a man he'd known his entire life, pulled the blade and killed the king and queen. Now they were dead, and his grandpa that had stayed behind as well. He would need to fight for their sake and for the princess. A bit further down had Krakow stopped. The thin figure looked up at them on the shaggy black hair. He made a few gestures with his hand to make them move. Born without the ability to talk, had Krakow been lonely most of his life, but he had gained friends in Nash and Melly, as well the prince himself. But now they were on the escape, trying to protect the princess from their very old friend, the prince himself. "We should be close to the Gilden Bridge. If we can get over it, we should be safe," Melly said as she passed Krakow. She was dead tired, her bones feeling like they was about to break, but they couldn't stop now. They needed to make this somehow. So many had died to protect them, to protect the princess, and she wouldn't allow their sacrifice to be in vain. With Melly taking the lead, did the two young men follow closely. The princess was still unconscious, resting in Nash's arms. In his heart did Nash know he could never forgive Argyn for the horrendous crime he'd done. Soon did they reach the Gilden Ravine, a massive rift that was so dark at the bottom that it looked like the void itself. How deep it was no one knew, and it had many legends about it. A natural barrier from the west that had served the castle as a defense in the past, and now was part of the royal escape system. However, over the large and windy rift was a bridge of stone reaching 50 meters to the other side. Due to the wind could it be dangerous to cross the bridge, and it would only be used for emergencies, like now. Melly led them onto the bridge as the wind catched her hair and dress, making them flutter like a banner. "Be careful, the wind is crazy just like Galen said," she shouted back at them as Nash and Krakow followed. "If we get over this, we should be able to make a distance and get away, right?" Nash shouted as he followed Melly. Krakow walked by nodding at Nash. They would make it. The princess would survive. They only had the thought on that. Yet, it was not that easy. "You better stop, traitors." The voice was cold and low, yet it was heard over the raging wind, like he stood just beside them. Slowly did they turn around and saw a group of 8 massive Mindlink armors, 5 meters tall, with heavy shields and swords built out of steel, were they the basic armor units of the army, and incredible powerful. Behind them stood a young man, dressed in a beautiful cloth in red and gold. The blonde hair was short and kept behind a crown. The former prince, and now to be king, smiled at them, a smile devoid of emotions. With him was 8 drivers, 1 for each armor, as well as standard troops. An elderly man in a dark cape stood behind the prince, one of the cultists without doubt. "This is rich coming from you, when you killed the king and queen, your own parents." Melly retaliated with anger in her voice. She pulled out a small dagger from her belt and held the torch in the other hand. It was useless to even think of fighting Mindlink armors with that, and 8 of them? It was nothing they could do. A man stepped away from the soldier to walk up beside the prince, a young man with a constant smile on his lips, similar to a fox. "It's a shame, really. Melly Schulman, young as you are, and you're one of the most talented Mindlink's armor drivers I ever seen. And then you, Ivan Krakovich, the best sharpshooter we had for a very, very long time." The man said that with a constant smile, his voice seemingly playful and lively compared to Argon. "Not to mention you, Nash Dragonsin. You had the chance to become the finest blade master in this land's history, yet you all decided to go against the prince, your old friend. What a shame." Nash glared at the man. "We didn't go against the prince. It was you that went against the king and queen, Sir Kane." Kane Highwall had always been a hard man to deal with, because you never really knew what he was thinking. A genius strategist and a soldier had he risen in rank from early age. The fact that he supported the prince was not a surprise when they thought about it. He simply served the strongest faction. "They were weak in the rule," Argon stated coldly. "They would never make Avalonia truly prosper as I will." Melly gritted her teeth. "Don't give me that shit, you traitor!" Ignoring her words, did the prince look at them with a calm expression. "You 3 have exceptional skills, and I will give you a second chance out of kindness, out of all old friendship. Even if you talk about kindness, it didn't feel like it." "And in return you want," Nash stated, glaring at Argon while holding the prince in a tight grip. He could already hear the answer. "In return, give the princess to me. Do that and pledge your loyalty to me." It was expected, and something they would never do. Melly raised her dagger, her face expressed defiance as she suddenly rushed towards the Mindlink armors. "Nash, Krakow, run with the princess!" she roared as she moved. If she could get close and possibly keep the soldier busy just for a moment, it would be worth it. But she knew how powerful the Mindlink armors are, being a driver herself. One fell move, and with a massive blade cut the ground, shattering stone, and her arm holding the dagger flew away over the bridge. In a blink of an eye did it slam a metallic fist into her chest, throwing her meters backwards. Krakow caught her tumbling body as she gasped in pain, blood gushing from the open wound where her arm had been. "Melly!" Nash screamed in fear as he let down the prince and rushed to Melly and Krakow. "Hurry! We need to stop the bleeding! Oh God!" How could this happen? They only wanted to do what was right, and now Melly was bleeding to death. Desperate, he tried to apply pressure on the gaping wound in an attempt to stop the bleeding. "Melly, please hold on, we're gonna get help." Suddenly did Krakow touch his shoulder, and Nash looked up at him. "What?" Krakow pointed behind him, and he turned around his head. They looked stunned on the little princess that had got up on her feet. The blonde hair moved in the wind, the bloody dress framing her small body. It was like the air became heavy around her, swirling like a storm growing within a second. "Stop her before she uses Silverlink!" Argon ordered quickly to the soldiers. They raised the rifles and the armor started to move, but it was too late. They could see a chain of silver flowing from her body like warm energy. Her eyes turned to pure silver as the prince stared at them. Instantly had their chains connected to the armors, guns, and anything mechanical nearby. A Mindlink armor was linked to one driver that had trained years to control and master it. Each armor was well suited for that one person, so to hijack and take over another armor was incredibly difficult, even for the most skilled veterans. But in this second, had this girl taken over all 8 armors as well as 12 rifles, making them unable to shoot. The drivers collapsed as the armors were hijacked, jolting back all that energy into their minds, making them unconscious. The soldiers looked confused as the rifle didn't work, even more so when the armor started to move, all 8 of them. To move one took enormous amount of mental fortitude, yet this girl, this princess, moved 8 at the same time. They started to break each other to pieces, shattering steel, oil and cogwheels as the prince could only look in anger. The princess that never used her ability, that never learned to master it, now used it to such extreme extent, it angered him just further. How dare she to have this gift and not him? What had the world, what had fate against him? Soon there was only one armor left. Kana was breathing heavy and blood dripped from her nose. Her body was trembling. What she just done is a feat unknown to man, and it was not weird that it pushed her little body to brink of destruction. She had never really used this power like this, not on this scale. "I won't let you hurt them anymore," she stuttered, barely able to speak, and her body felt heavy. The chains to the rifle broke away, and it felt like her head would explode. Yet she managed to keep control of the last armor that rushed towards her and the others. Putting the sword and shield on its back, did a large armor pick up Kana, Nash, Mel and Krakow with its arms, as Argen gave order to shoot. Bullets bounced loudly from the shield and the metal armor as it quickly moved, jumping on the small cliff edges to go upwards the ravine. Normally such movement, such swift and agile movement would be nearly impossible, even for veteran drivers. But then again, the princess was not normal. Argen looked at the armor vanish on top as the soldiers shouted to each other. Clenching his fist did he turn around and start to walk up the stairs. "Sir Kane, look for them. No matter what, find them and kill them except the princess. Bring her to me," he said coldly to the general that bowed. "Yes, your majesty. Right away." Surrounding the palace is the city of Aval, a great city filled with people from all over the kingdom. It was hailed as the most modern and beautiful city of all the world, with steam rising from the buildings, from the machinery that doesn't exist elsewhere. Usually the city was lively, with people from all over the world, all from merchants and workers doing their daily chores, to servants and farmers going in to sell and to shop. But today it was quiet as troops filled the streets. "It is surely chaotic outside." The man was in his 40s, with brown hair with a streak of silver. He was wearing a white coat and glasses on a crooked nose, smoking his pipe as he looked out the window from his office. A simple doctor, if you asked him, with little care in the world. Seeing the soldiers going from door to door, did he soon hear them knock on his own door. He sighed tiredly as he went down the small house and to the front door. "Yes?" He looked at the soldier standing outside the door. "Dr. Orm, we want to do a quick checkup." "How so?" Orm glared annoyed at the soldiers as they entered forcefully. "The king and queen have been murdered and the princess kidnapped by a group of traitors. We are looking thoroughly after the kidnappers and murders," the soldier said seriously. It shocked the doctor, that fell back in a chair. "What? They are... No, that's impossible." "That is the sad truth. If you know anything, please report to us," the soldier said as soon as the others returned. "Nothing here, Captain." "Okay, then let's move to the next. We have a lot of ground to cover. If you hear anything, report to the guard immediately." With that, did the soldier leave to search throughout the other houses. Orm looked at the window as the soldier vanished, making sure they were well out of sight. He sighed slightly and ran a hand through the hair. Such troubles. Entering the small living room, did he walk to one of the bookshelves. Pulling one book, did one of the shelves swing open, revealing a secret room. Entering it, did he close the shelf behind him. "They go through the entire city, house by house. Gonna be rough for you to leave." Nash looked up from Mella that was sleeping in a bed. "I understand, and thank you once again, Orm," he said and looked over to Krakow. The silent man was watching over Kana that was also unconscious, sleeping in a bed. At the back of the room was the armor, sitting turned off as well, watching over them like a guardian. Orm sat down at a small desk and looked at the documents. "I owe Galen that, not to mention that I knew the king and queen. Still can't imagine them being dead, even less by Argen's hands," he said and looked at the princess. She will have a scar on her forehead, and from the little I got to talk with her before she collapsed, I'm worried about her mental state and the trauma she's been suffering. As well, Melly is still in a danger zone. Even if she don't bleed anymore, did she lose a lot of blood? If she gets sick now, it is really bad. Yesterday they had come barging in through the back door, seeking help from Mel and Kana. Orm only accepted it as a doctor and a friend to the royal family. At first he couldn't believe it though, that Argan, that he known since he was an infant, had done something like this, something horrible. But as the news spread and the gods seeking for the princess, did he come to realize that it was the truth. As for now, he would be branded traitor as well for hiding and helping them, but he accepted that fate. While doing another check on Melly and Kana, did the doctor go through in his mind of what to do next. They couldn't stay here for long, he neither. But due to the condition of the two wounded, was it critical that they got care in a stable and calm surrounding, and most of all a clean one. Being on the run now was out of question, but for how long could they be hiding here? He would need to prepare for the absolute worst. He looked at the young woman who had lost her arm in such a horrid manner. These kids wasn't more than 16 years old, and the princess just 8. From the point that Argan killed the king and queen, had their lives been forever changed. What are we gonna do now? Nash looked on Melly that was still unconscious. You could feel the desperation like an aura around him. Orm glanced at him and then leaned back on his chair. Staying alive, that is the first thing you need to do. Caracco sat down and checked through a rifle he got from Orm. An outdated version, but still usable, with a few extra bullets left. He looked up on Nash and nodded. It was enough for him to understand what Caracco wanted to say. We will fight, and not give up. We will survive. I give us max a week before they might find us out, so as soon as they are a bit more stable, we will move. Orm said out loud and looked at Nash and Caracco. We will run far away from the capital and the main cities. Nash looked confused. We? Are you going with us? Of course, I can't let you kids go alone. And these two still need medical help if to survive. The doctor let out a grunt. And I will be branded traitor as well, so nothing can be done about that anyways. It was reassuring to hear Orm say this, and Nash smiled a bit. He was about to thank the doctor when Melly suddenly gasped and they turned their attention to her. Opening her eyes, did she look tired around, breathing in pain. The princess, is she? Melly's voice was weak. She was in such pain, and yet her first thought was on the princess. Gently did Nash hold her hand in his. She's okay, Melly. She's sleeping here too. We're in a secret room at Dr. Orm. Just try to rest and... My arm is gone. Her voice became stronger, as if she already accepted it. But she couldn't hide the pain and fear in her eyes. Afraid to look, to feel, did she look at Nash, seeking hope, but saw him crying. I'm sorry, Melly. If we were stronger, we could have made this without you and the princess getting hurt. I'm sorry. Don't be silly. Melly's eyes teared up as she squeezed his hand. At the corner cleaning the rifle, the Caracco's tears dropped down on the rifle. Their emotions had suddenly burst open and they couldn't control their pains. They were all still children that had been suffering through horrendous hardship, and now finally it all caught up to them. Those that they had lost, the wounds they got, and the fears for the future in a world where they would be seen as enemies by the masses. Orm had empathy for them. The world they now entered would be a very dangerous one. He would do all he could to guide them, but he was just one man that never thought much of himself, just an existence in the now. Maybe it was all for this, a fate bound to chains of silver. Suddenly did he realize that Kana sat up in her bed, bandages covering her forehead, and she looked at them all in daze. Seems like you're awake, Who are you? She asked, looking at all of them. What? And who am I? And that is the end of the very first chapter of the Silverlink, the prologue, so to speak, that I have written out. I do hope it was not too horrid. As I said, this is the very first time I do this kind of thing, so I'm quite nervous. I know I don't have the best pronunciations. My English is not the best and all of that. Still though, I thought it was pretty nice and pretty fun thing to do and read out the story like this. And people are interested, I definitely would do more. And if not, well, I won't do more then. And of course, if there are any things that you have, like suggestions, things like that, what you thought about what I should improve, and as well what you think about it. If it's interesting or something like that. Right now, of course, it's just the very beginning, so it's nothing super fancy, but still, hopefully it's somehow interesting. But yes, I will be back with more other stuff here on the channel if nothing else. So thank you everyone for listening. See you later on. Have a continued super great day.